Welcome to this week's edition of France in Focus. I'm Mariexy. Behind me is the Curie Institute. It contains a leading cancer research facility and also a museum dedicated to the life and work of the only woman to win 2 Nobel Prizes for achievements in science, Marie Curie. Born 150 years ago, Marie Curie's research into radioactivity revolutionized everything from medicine to technology. So what are the discoveries she can put her name to?
Even before she found fame, Marie Curie was already a gifted physicist who was looking for a doctoral subject. In 1897 in Paris, she became interested in the work of Henri Becquerel, the first person to find evidence of radioactivity. The French physicist had discovered that uranium salts emit penetrating radiation without the need of an external energy source. Marie Curie decided to begin her own research into minerals containing uranium. One of them was pitchblende, now known as uraninite. While extracting uranium from the pitchblende with her husband Pierre, she found that other, even more radioactive elements made up the ore. In July 1898, Curie and her husband discovered a new element which they named polonium, after Marie's home country, Poland. 5 months later, they found a second element, 1,000,000 times more radioactive than uranium. They called it radium and coined the word radiation. In 1903, Henri Becquerel and the Curie were awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics for their pioneering work. 8 years later, Marie Curie received the Nobel Prize in Chemistry for her contribution to research on radium and polonium.
I'm joined now by Renaud Wynne, who's the director of the Curie Museum, and we're actually standing in Marie Curie's former lab. So tell me, what sort of experiments did she conduct here?
Well, the whole building was dedicated to science of radioactivity, so there were a lot of different experiments, and especially in this room, it was some chemistry experiment to separate and purify radium.
And did this room witness any great discoveries?
Well, not this room, but in the building, Frédéric and Irène Joliot-Curie discovered artificial radioactivity, and they shared a chemistry Nobel Prize in 1935 for this very important discovery.
Now, Curie did, of course, win Nobel Prizes in both chemistry and physics. Do we have any idea which of the disciplines interested her most?
Well, it's quite difficult to answer because science of radioactivity is between the two fields of chemistry and physics, so she was involved in the two disciplines.
This is the lab that Curie worked in for the last 2 decades of her life, but she hadn't always worked in such well-suited spaces.
You're right. Unfortunately, Pierre Curie died before the building of this great lab dedicated to radioactivity. At first, they used to work in a dark shed a few streets from here, where Pierre Curie was professor.
And you have Marie Curie's lab coat here. Are you sure that it's not radioactive?
Yes, of course, we checked if it was radioactive or not, and the lab has to be decontaminated because there were some traces of radium all around the furniture, so it has to be decontaminated, and it was done in 1981.
Fascinating stuff. David Wynne, thank you very much indeed.
You're welcome.
Curie's breakthroughs came well over a century ago, yet her work continues to influence medicine research. Well, to discuss her legacy in a little more depth, I'm joined now by the director of the Institute's Centre for Research, Geneviève Almusny. Hi, Geneviève.
Hi.
Curie's discoveries led to a revolution in the way cancer is treated. Just how did radioactivity work in that early attempt to cure cancer?
Well, in brief, I guess what you have to bear in mind is that cancer cells tend to proliferate rapidly. And so if you inflict damage, they will be much more sensitive. And that's what radiotherapy is doing, creating damage and then killing the cells.
Now we have a whole range of techniques to treat and cure cancer, but some of Marie Curie's original techniques are still in use today.
Absolutely, I think it remains the major treatment in place, but it's working now more often in combination or with a better understanding of what is behind for individual patients.
If Marie Curie was alive and working today, what field would she be working in? Where are the next big breakthroughs going to come from?
I hope I could convince her to work on epigenetics, which is my favorite area. And there's definitely a lot that has to be brought into the picture to understand how the radiation is coping with the genome and its overall organization. And so much to do. So come, Marie, join us.
Geneviève Al-Mousli, thank you very much indeed. So we've heard about Marie Curie, the scientist, but what about Marie Curie, the woman? We spoke to her granddaughter, Irène Curie's daughter, about her extraordinary life.
Sa famille est on peut dire, une famille, oui, intellectuelle. Assez pauvre. Le père était professeur en physique et mathématiques et la mère de Marie tenait au début une école pour les filles. Il y a très peu d'universités qui acceptent les filles. Et Paris en est une. Il faut se rendre compte qu'on est en 91. Paris a une place en Europe qui est tout de même très particulière, très importante. À la fin de ses études, elle obtient ce qu'on appellerait aujourd'hui une bourse de recherche. Et là, un ami de la famille Chouelevski connaît Pierre Curie. Donc, il les invite à prendre le thé. Et c'est là qu'il y a cette phrase où Marie dit « J'ai été frappée par son regard pensif ». Et puis, ils vont discuter du sujet de Marie. Et Pierre Curie est le premier étonné. Il n'a jamais vu une femme parler de physique. Alors lui, le coup de foudre, c'est l'immédiat. Le comité Nobel reçoit des propositions qui viennent des académies. Et donc l'Académie a proposé Becquerel et Pierre Curie. Et c'est effectivement quand Pierre Curie l'a su qu'il a fait savoir que, bon, s'il s'agit de la radioactivité, le travail de Marie doit absolument être associé à moi. Donc le comité Nobel a pu l'attribuer à Pierre et Marie Curie et pas à Pierre tout seul. Dès la déclaration de guerre, Marie Curie s'est lancée dans chercher des sponsors, on appellerait ça comme ça aujourd'hui, se faire prêter des camionnettes, les démantibuler pour pouvoir installer l'appareil de rayons X dessus et se précipiter dans des postes du front pour voir comment ça se passait. Et arrivé à un moment, sa conviction, ça a été ce qui manque le plus maintenant, c'est plus le matériel, c'est les gens pour s'en servir correctement. Et elle a organisé à l'Institut du Radium des stages, au fond, pour des infirmières. Marie est décédée à 67 ans. C'est une leucémie caractéristique du dégât du rayonnement. L'idée du Panthéon a été avancée pour Marie comme symbole pour les femmes. Et effectivement, la réaction de la famille ne pouvait être que ça ne peut être que Pierre et Marie Curie ou personne.
Paris's Panthéon is a secular mausoleum that houses the remains of revered French citizens. One of the first men to be buried here was writer and philosopher Voltaire in 1791. It was only in 1995 that the Panthéon first admitted a woman on her own merit. That woman was, of course, Marie Curie. So this is the final resting place of both Marie and Pierre Curie, and I'm joined now by David Medek, who's the manager of the Panthéon. Hi, David.
Hello.
So Marie Curie died in 1934, but she only was brought here in 1995. What happened in the interim? Why did it take the French establishment so long to honour her in this way?
Well, who goes in the Panthéon is a presidential decision. It was in 1995 when François Mitterrand decided to honor Marie and Pierre Curie for their respective talents. It took time to recognize her work, even if she won a Nobel Prize, and to recognize her dedication to research. This was what led to her being buried at the Panthéon.
Now, we know that Marie Curie lived an extraordinary life, but she also had a rather unusual burial. Tell us more.
So yes, Marie and Pierre Curie were buried at the Panthéon with all the splendor that entails, with a large ceremony outside. But as for Marie Curie, her tomb was covered with 3 layers of lead to avoid any sort of radioactivity, because she was surrounded by radioactivity from polonium and radium throughout her lifetime.
David Medek, thank you very much indeed. And that brings us to the end of this week's edition of France in Focus. Thank you very much for watching. Till next time.